Welcome back. Today I'm over in my dad's wood shop and I'm going to make the wooden handle for the machinist hammer that I'm making. So this thing is all finished up except for the handle. We've got the end cap on here and that just threads on, and that's going to act as a sort of retainer once we get the hammer handle made and assembled onto here. And what we're starting with is just a walnut log. So I'm thinking I can cut this somewhat in half like this and get a hammer handle out of right here. I don't think it checks too deep into there, so I'm thinking I can get a hammer handle out of that area. Alright, our blank has been roughly turned around. There's still areas on here that haven't cleaned up, and it's definitely too big for the handle we want, but for right now, all we needed was it somewhat round. Then I started on the lathe, drilling a center hole through here, drilled it as far as this drill bit would reach, and then pulled it out of the lathe and used a hand drill and an extended length drill bit to put a hole all the way through the center there. What I have here is a couple of aluminum plugs that I made previously, and each one has 3 center drill marks in it. So the one right here, which is exactly in the center, and then 400 thousandths out from each side of that in a straight line. Same with this one, center drill right in the middle, and then 400 thousandths to each side of that. This one also has a couple of tapped holes in it for a socket head cap screw, and that's what will let us drive the workpiece with a spur center. So it should catch on one of the spurs there and let us drive the workpiece. This end on the tailstock doesn't need that, it'll just be a regular live center. So what we'll do with the first one is just lightly tap it in to one of the ends of our workpiece. And then use a straight edge and clamp it on here. And line up the edge through the center of our 3 holes. So something like that. Then we'll take the other plug and straight edge and do the same thing. Clamp it on here, lined up with our 3 holes. Something like that. Then I can sight down the length of this and line up the 2 straight edges so that I know the 3 holes on each end are in alignment with each other. I can also set this thing on here with this one flat and then see how that one falls in order to know which way to twist it a little bit to get them perfectly into alignment. So I'm going to fuss with this a little bit. Once I get them nice and straight with each other, I'll tap them in further and then pull off the clamps and straight edges. Now that I have these 2 in alignment with each other and firmly tapped into each end, I'm ready to start turning. And the first thing I'm going to do is use the center hole on both ends. We'll turn the overall diameter of this thing to approximately 1.5 inches. Yeah, that's a circle. So after we have it 1.5 inches all the way down the length of here, I'm going to go ahead and start giving it a little bit of profile shape. If you look at a hammer handle from the end, it's oval shaped, and that's so that it fits nicely in your hand and you can easily tell the orientation of it. It's easy to know when you're swinging it straight with the hammer by the feel of the handle. So that's what we want to copy. Once we get it turned to 1.5 inches, we'll go ahead along the long axis of the oval and give it a profile that we're looking for. After that, we'll move over to one of the holes on the side of our aluminum plugs. Same side, so if I use this hole on this side, I'll use the same one on that side. And then we'll use our chisel and just lightly take a skim cut. So we don't want to remake it round based on that hole. That would just make it round smaller. What we want to do is just take a skim cut, and we're only going to be partially cutting this on a larger diameter than the 1.5 inches. So around this center hole, we're just going to take a skim cut and it'll take off material like that. Then we'll move it to the opposite side over here and do the same thing. We don't want to make it round, we just want to take a skim cut, and it's going to take off material like that and leave us with an ovalish shaped handle. Enough of the talking, let's start turning. Now we've got the basic profile of the handle done. A little bit wider up at the top and the bottom. Just kind of keeps your handle centered in your hand. Should give a good grip. Tapers down up here at the front where it'll meet up with the neck of the hammer. Something like that. So now I'm going to use the offset holes and just give a skim pass using each set of holes and give this thing an oval shape to it. So you can see that it narrows here a little bit in the middle in both directions. So if I turn it 90 degrees here as well. And you can see that this profile in this direction is much narrower than that direction. Fits pretty well. Transitions pretty nicely into the neck of the hammer. I'll have to do a little bit of fine sanding to make that match as best as possible, but overall not bad. And still have to do some finish sanding here on the bottom to round over the end of this. But I'll probably wait on the rest of the sanding until I epoxy this thing onto here and get it in its final position. Then I can blend this nicely and round this over before putting a coat of stain on it. The two aluminum plugs worked pretty well for this. It was easy to switch back and forth between the center location and both of the offsets. And the reason for these was because I wanted my turning to be nicely concentric with the hole that I had going through the middle. I wanted to drill that hole first so that I could then use these to reference my turning off of it. If I would have turned it first, you could have turned without these, just putting center drill marks in the end of your wood. But then when I went to go back and drill the 1/2 inch hole all the way through here, I would have had no way to make sure it was nicely centered all the way through. So by doing it first and then using these two pieces, it let me keep that center hole concentric with the turning of the rest of the handle. I don't know if I explained that earlier, but that was the reasoning for these. Here's a few pictures of the hammer after the handle has been epoxied on, sanded to fit, and a couple coats of clear have been applied. I hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching.